Welcome to Hotline Weekend, your ultimate weekend getaway for nonstop excitement and entertainment. Join us every week as we bring you Metro News Hotline's most popular features, engaging interviews, and thrilling games. Kick back, relax, and relive the highlights of our most talked about segments. Hotline Weekend, your ultimate dose of fun and unforgettable moments.
Before we get any further down the line, let's go ahead and bring Chef Paul on the line. How you doing today, Chef Paul?
I am fantastic. Thanks so much. I'm sorry, I was just in a mentoring conversation with a young high school student that is a ProStart student, and we're talking about his next steps and whether he wants to continue in the culinary realm or if he wants to go to a traditional college or maybe a university, whatever. So,
and you've talked about that
part of my role.
You've talked about that path a little bit on this program before, and that's one of the things that you actively do. You do try to help folks that are trying to find their way in the culinary arts to find the right path. Yeah,
and this is exactly what I was just telling him was there were numerous chefs that I worked for, and there were only a few that really took me as a whole into consideration and tried to develop me as a person as well as a cook or, an employee. And I think that is what we try to do in all of our businesses, whether it's Ellen's, because we have a ton of young children, young kids at Ellen's. So we're mentoring not just, from a dessert, ice cream, culinary, managerial standpoint, but we're just trying to, kind of like a coach. We're in high school or college. We're trying to develop young adults too. So that's the fun part of my job.
That's great stuff. And I know Chef Paul was great enough to, he was my guest co-host last Friday on the local show here in Charleston, 580 Live. I was subbing in for that show. We usually have a guest co-host on Fridays, so Paul came in and was my co-host on that program. So I happen to know from the conversation we had last week that you're headed out to Napa. What's going on there?
So I'm leaving first thing in the morning, flying out to Napa Valley. I'm going to the Worlds of Flavors Conference, which is a couple hundred chefs from around the country that get together for continuing education. And so I'm going to be learning. I'm also going to be presenting. So I'm going to be talking about Appalachian cuisine, Appalachian history, Appalachian foodways.
And so when you're, what kind of presentation when you talk about these, are you still with us, Chef Paul? I'm sorry. I thought.
Yeah, sorry. I got a little feedback on my end there for a sec.
Oh, okay. When you're doing these presentations, are these like Appalachia
in 100 years ago, and how oysters and the railroad and, the whole town would come together, the whole community would come together and, fry up some oysters and barbecue oysters and make oyster stews. And it was a whole town event. So I'm really, really excited to go out there. I'm honored to be a part of this. This is going to be, this is one of those things where, a little old chef from Charleston, West Virginia, going and talking to chefs from New York City and Chicago and Vegas and L.A., out in this conference right in the, in the culinary mecca of the United States is an honor that I just really am super excited about.
Man, that sounds outstanding. And every time that I talk to you, you do a lot of traveling, you do a lot of communication of the culinary arts. But the one thing that I always love is you always find a way to bring it back to Appalachia in one way or the other and pay homage to your roots. And I think that's fantastic. Yeah. You're going to be out there talking about the history of our region. I know that you were down in Charlie South not that long ago when you were cooking something ramp-based, if I'm not mistaken.
Down there. Ramp-based and pepperoni rolls. And I'm going to be taking some ramps out there. And, I'm talking about things, that have a shorter, a shorter growing season, such as ramps. And what we as Appalachian, as a Appalachian heritage did, where we picked the ramps and we made pesto with them here, but you either pickle them or make something with them and freeze them. And, that's why I did the fermented corn or the sour corn, because again, corn grows in the summer. And we need to eat it all year round, especially growing up in rural Appalachia. I'm going to talk about the significance of being closed for a couple of weeks during deer season, right around the holidays, and how much of a significance that is and was, but still is for rural West Virginia and Appalachia to have, protein for the year, and how all of these things come together in a fine dining restaurant, and we take things that were a necessity, things that were really at our fingertips here in West Virginia, growing right here, and we've elevated it to a fine dining level, and now we're getting national recognition for it. So it's really cool to be on the ground floor of this.
I've always been a big fan of that, and I love hearing about your continuing adventures along this route and the things that you're helping to bring some recognition to the area and to what you're doing. I think that it's a fantastic thing, and we always love hearing about how those things tie back together. One thing that I've wanted to ask you, and I didn't get a chance to on Friday when you came in and did the guest co-hosting gig. By the way, I was able to save one of those pepperoni rolls that we got from the wheelhouse to give to Dave Weekly in the afternoon. Those things were going.
Man. Dave's
so
a lucky
fast.
guy. He must be a heck of a friend, because I was dreaming about those wheelhouse pepperoni rolls the rest of the day. My car just wanted to drive back down there.
I'm telling you what, from Bridge Road down here in Charleston, when Chef Paul was in here on Friday with us, we got a complete surprise and got fresh out of the oven pepperoni rolls. I think Dave may have mentioned it on Friday during the program, but these were the freshest pepperoni rolls that I've ever had, and man, they were so delicious.
Yeah, Tina at the Wheelhouse, they just do such a great job, and she's a great person. Their whole team is great. It's such a cool thing to be a part of this culinary and restaurant fraternity here in West Virginia. It's just all about community. It's great.
What is, you went to pastry school, and I kind of leave that, I don't talk to you enough about pastries, because I've only gotten into baking in the last couple of years. Made some really good peanut butter cookies this weekend, by the way, but
oh, good.
I've only got into baking the last couple of years, and I'm trying to come around to it, and it's really kind of my thing. I like the sciencey aspect of it. I like how, you have to have your ingredients a certain way, certain temperature. I kind of like that. Yep. I just have to have the time to do it. What is low-key, like when we start talking about holidays and things like that, what's low-key one of the most difficult things to, like something that a lot of grandmas out there make and maybe we take for granted a little bit, but what's something that's out there that's kind of low-key really hard to make?
Low-key hard to make? I mean, and hard to make well, fudge. Fudge is hard to make well, to make it velvety and not grainy and to really have that touch. I think fudge, anything that is, you talk about a butter cookie, you talk about a, shortbread. It's really easy to make, but it's really easy to mess up. Things like custards, those things are also pretty easy to make, but also easy to mess up. You can overcook it. It can taste eggy. You can undercook it. It can be grainy. These types of things that our grandmothers, talk about Appalachia. I mean, gosh, cooking and family in Appalachia and just watching our grandmothers and grandfathers growing up. You're right. They made it look so easy. And then you get into something like baking and pastry and things like that. And it is a science, and it really takes on everything. You have to know how the environment is working with it. Is it cold? Is it hot? Do you need your water warmer or cooler? Is it humid? Is it not? What elevation you're at. My grandfather was a baker, and I wish that I would have gone and worked with him more baking his bread, because by the time I got back from culinary school, he had Alzheimer's and he didn't remember, and he didn't have anything written down. So everybody out there, get your grandmothers, great-grandmothers, all the passed down recipes. Make sure that you write them down, because I still every day think about my grandfather's bread and wish I could duplicate it.
Yeah, that's something that my wife is really good at. She likes to exchange recipes, handwrite recipes, and exchange them with people. And that's one of the things that she loves to do, is to keep those things down. I sent you earlier, but when I knew that you were going to be able to come on today, what our question of the day today was. And I was curious on your take on this. When you're either making food for someone who doesn't feel well, or maybe you're cooking for yourself and you're a little under the weather, what kind of foods do you lean into?
Well, I grew up in a large Italian family, so things like pastina was what I do is, chicken broth, small noodles, maybe a little bit of Parmesan cheese, something that really is just, it instantly makes me feel better. a little bit of house-made, the homemade chicken noodle broth. You take your roasted carcasses and you make your broth, and, it gets that kind of gelatinous, which really just coats everything. Either that or growing up, my grandfather would give me a hot toddy. I thought Jack Daniels was a medicine, growing up with a little bit of honey in it and a little bit of lemon. So, those are the old, it was either pastina and a shot of Jack Daniels with honey and lemon.
We've had a couple of hot toddy answers on the question of the day for what their go-to was when they were growing up, and a lot of people did that. I can't remember my grandma giving me alcohol. The one thing that I know that my grandma definitely did that I don't think did me any good in the future was she would put hot castor oil in my ears when I had an earache. So she would warm up the oil over the stove, and then she would check it on her hand, be like, okay, it's fine now. And she would just pour that into my ears and stuff a cotton ball in there to get rid of my earache. And I have some problems with my ears, and I kind of wonder if maybe that has something to do with it.
That could be it. I mean, some things work, some things don't.
Yeah, some things.
But at the time, it probably made you feel better. A little bit of that placebo effect, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You something hot and warm in your ears, and you have an earache. You think it's probably going to make you feel better. I think it was the pain from the heat, though, that distracted me from the pain of the ear.
My grandmother would kind of run a hair dryer kind of back and forth over my ear, and I don't know if that did it. Maybe it just put me asleep, who knows, or took my mind off of it.
Yeah, some of those things, I tell you what. Food, though, you can't go wrong with food. I think that that's something that can make any of us feel better. And Chef Paul, appreciate you taking your time to come on to talk a little bit about food with us here. Sir. And have a good trip out to Napa Valley. We look forward to hearing about how it goes when you come back.
This is Hotline Weekend.
Let's talk a little bit about tech right now. Let's bring Abrar Al-Heeti into the mix from CNET to talk about tech. Abrar, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
You know what? I want to start with this story that you sent me about Apple will start building their own iPhone batteries. Man, This is a massive, massive story, right?
It is. It is because Apple, for the past few years, has really focused on making its own chips for its iPhones and its Macs, and it's really paid off. I mean, these chips are a lot more powerful than anything they'd used before. And so it's kind of natural to think, well, now, of course, they're going to start trying to build their own batteries. This is all still rumored, but, the rumors are usually true. And basically, the advantage that this would offer, similarly to the advantage it offered with its chips, is you would have faster performance with these, if you have an in-house battery and an in-house chip and the battery lasts longer, and the whole product then just becomes a better product.
Man, there's so many angles to this story. First of all, if Apple started building batteries for their own phones, this would be bad news for a lot of high-tech corporations, including Samsung. I mean, Samsung sells batteries to Apple. So does Sony. So does LG. That would be bad news for all of those companies.
It definitely would, in the same way that I feel like, with Intel, it was surely a blow when Apple decided to make its own chips. And when you watch the latest event that Apple had with its MacBooks, the amount of times they kept saying, if you still have an Intel MacBook, this is the time to upgrade. They're going to push whatever they make over the older models, and those other companies will surely feel the blow. So I'm sure they're not very thrilled about that in terms of what's coming with these batteries.
You remember, though, the way people reacted when the story came out that Apple was going to start making their own chips? What naysayers were saying about that they were going to be subpar chips, and this is where Apple's going to fall off a cliff. Anything but happened. I mean, they've totally slam dunked that.
Apple just has a way of, even when it seems like it's a great opportunity for pessimists to chime in and say, oh, this is going to be what ends it. This is going to be their downfall. Apple always comes out on top, and they know it. They have the confidence because they have reason to have the confidence. And so it makes sense that even if that were a similar sentiment here with people saying, well, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they do that based on their history? All
right, before we move on, the story you sent me about this, I had no idea about this, but I read the story. And one of the interesting points in here is that if Apple starts producing their own iPhone batteries, those batteries are not going to be ready until iPhone 17. That the new iPhone 16 would not have these new, Apple-made batteries. Could that be a problem for iPhone 16? I mean, if I've got a 14 or a 15 and I want to update, why wouldn't I want to wait until I get the new batteries?
Exactly. And I wonder if Apple is maybe not thrilled with the fact that people will probably now just wait, because if you are due for an upgrade in a couple years, you're not gonna be like, oh, well, let me go ahead and get the 16. It's time. You'll say, let me just hang on a bit, because if I'm going to get the 16 in a year, they're going to pressure me to get the 17 to get those better batteries if that ends up being the case.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we got a lot of AI to talk about in the next couple of minutes as well. Tell me a little bit about this story about YouTube's testing a chatbot that will appear under select videos. What's this about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what it does is it can basically answer any questions that you have about that video, but then also recommend any related content. I'm sure that this is an effort for, YouTube to increase your time and engagement on that platform. And so that chatbot could be a way to do that. This is still a test that's rolling out, and it's only available right now to premium members. I'm kind of tempted to sign up for the wait list just to play with it a little bit, because I'm curious how functional or helpful this will be. And then there's another feature that uses AI that they're starting to roll out, which basically organizes the comments on a video into topics, which I'm kind of curious about, just because sometimes the topics, there's some good comments on a video, and sometimes it's a little bit more negative. So I'm curious how it'll handle the good and the bad.
Coop, how much do you pay to be a premium YouTube subscriber? How much does that cost?
Man, what is it now? Like $15.99 or $12.99? I was looking at it the other day, man. It's pricey, but I think we talked about it last time. Abrar was on. I can't get rid of it. I can't have the commercials and stuff for professional reasons. I gotta cut that stuff out.
Well, that's the one subscription with it. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, okay, so say for example, a chatbot will appear under select videos. That's great. But could this be another excuse to raise the price of this? What's the max that you'd be willing to pay? Would you go $20 a month for premium YouTube service?
Yeah, I definitely would not. And I kind of get that vibe that a lot of companies, whenever they do raise the prices, they're not going to give you fewer features. They're going to keep building and adding those features, like you mentioned. And they're going to say that the price is justified by the fact that you get all those perks. I would rather pay less money and not have something I never asked for. I never asked for a chatbot under some videos.
Right.
So I hope that's not the case.
All right. So Elon Musk owns X, and now he says XAI will be integrated into the platform. All right. So I'm a subscriber. What's this mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of X's in this story where it gets a little confusing. But, it's funny because XAI was this platform that he launched that is, AI. And it has this really broad goal. And they say what it is, it's to assist humanity in its quest for understanding and knowledge. That could literally mean anything. So we're still not really clear what the goal of this startup is. But what this means for you as a user of X, formerly Twitter, is that XAI pulls information from X. So that's where it's getting its real-time knowledge of the world. It can answer, questions. They say that it can answer questions that other AI systems won't answer. But it's going to be integrated, and it's also going to be a standalone app. So you can either choose to use it by itself or through X. This kind of ties into Elon Musk's dream of bringing everything together, creating this one platform. You could do everything on this one platform called X.
All right. Well, I already pay like $7 or $8 for X. Is this another excuse for this service to be more expensive?
I would not be surprised. I hate to say it, but they keep hiking the prices. I feel like even on X itself. So I feel like this could be another reason to do that.
Coop, you should have seen yesterday when Ryan found out that I actually paid for X. To be able to get the old tweet deck. Oh, man, that was not a good scene. He was really laughing at me big time.
I told him before, and he didn't believe me. He was like, Dave doesn't pay for that. I was like, he does, man. Dave's a blue check, man.
Yeah, I've never written a tweet that's more than 280 characters, but I guess if I, felt like my manifesto had to go out there, I could do it.
Yeah, but your replies are at the top of every thread.
So I got that going for me.
Exactly.
All right. But let's wrap this up. You got a little bit of news about Chat GPT as well, an upgraded GPT-4 turbo model.
Right. So basically the GPT turbo model is basically a more powerful version of this. And so, faster responses, more powerful responses, more content, more recent aggregation of content. But what's really interesting here is that people will now be able to create custom GPT chat apps. So you can cater it for a specific purpose. And, if you're a company and you have this service that you really want to use and, build with GPT, you can do that. But not only that, there's also going to be a store, think of an app store, but for these GPT apps. So people can basically find your services, find these GPTs that you've built, and you really think of it as an app store, but for just this purpose.
Yeah, did you see that story about Julia Louis-Dreyfus let Chat GPT write an acceptance speech for her?
Oh my God, I did not.
So, it makes you wonder how many people are already doing that.
Exactly. I think about that a lot, and it makes, if I read anything and I'm like, oh, this is a little too perfect, now we're also so skeptical of each other now. Who knows?
That's so true. Hey, thanks for coming on the show as always to talk a little bit about tech. We'll do it again next Wednesday at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Abrar Al-Heeti, have a good week.
This is Hotline Weekend. Welcome to Hotline Weekend, your ultimate weekend getaway for nonstop excitement and entertainment.
Got a little breaking news. Let's go to Hoppy Kercheval in Morgantown with the news about Joe Manchin. Hoppy, good afternoon. What's up with Joe Manchin?
Well, Joe Manchin announcing via video release that he is not going to run for re-election to the United States Senate. This is a decision he's been thinking about for months and has been putting off announcing what his plans were. I think he's been back and forth on what to do, run for re-election, don't run, maybe test the waters to run as an independent for president, maybe just retire. But this closes one of the possibilities, the fact that he's announced that he's not running for re-election.
Well, I guess at some point we'll get a reaction from Governor Jim Justice, who wants to take that Senate seat.
Well, this does open the path significantly for Jim Justice, the current governor, of course, running for the Republican nomination to the U.S. Senate. He still has to get past the primary, where he faces current Congressman Alex Mooney, but Jim Justice has about a 40-point lead over Mooney right now. So Justice is in very good shape to win that Republican nomination. And then there's just not a Democrat in West Virginia that is not named Joe Manchin that has a chance to beat Jim Justice. So this clears a wide path for Jim Justice to become West Virginia's next United States Senator. Now, again, long time between now and a year from now, but it certainly creates a great advantage for Jim Justice. I think also, Dave, it's interesting what Manchin said. I mean, he goes through a family history of getting involved in politics, and of course in West Virginia he served in the West Virginia legislature, Secretary of State, Governor, U.S. Senate, and he talked about why I got into politics and, growing up in Marion County, and reminded of what John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. He says he was inspired by those words when he was 13 years old, and he's dedicated his life to public service. But also, Dave, it is well documented that in the recent years he's been disappointed by the tone and tenor of politics in this country, the bitter fighting that goes on between the left and the right. And Manchin's always been a guy that wants to get everybody around the table, try to bring people together for a greater good, and that's getting harder and harder to do. And also, Dave, he's done a lot here in the last year or so by helping to push through the infrastructure bill and also the Inflation Reduction Act to bring projects to West Virginia. But even by doing that, he still gets a lot of criticism because, for example, the Inflation Reduction Act is something that Joe Biden supported, and so as long as Joe Biden supported it, then it didn't reflect well in West Virginia because this is a deep red state. So he probably was frustrated by the fact that it was hard for him to get credit for some of the things that he did in Washington that he felt benefited West Virginia.
All right, a couple of things here. Number one, do you expect someone to step into the void in the Democratic Party to run against most likely Justice for that Senate seat? Will there be somebody to step in there?
Yeah, I mean, somebody will step in, Dave, but man, that's a tough row to hoe.
Of course it is.
I mean, even Joe Manchin, who has 100% name recognition, has been around forever, has won a ton of elections, even he was, 8-10 points down to Jim Justice. I mean, that was going to be a close race if he stayed in. But so who could possibly, from the Democratic side, make it a competitive race against Jim Justice. That would be very, very hard to do in this state right now. I mean, things can change, but I can't see anybody that would have a real good chance. And also, Dave, you're going to need a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the national money is going to migrate toward other races where the national Democratic fundraisers feel that a candidate has a better chance. You got big races in Ohio for the Senate and in Montana and just other places where Democrats want to try to hold serve or get a Democrat elected. You know, one other point, Dave, is Manchin has also given you some language in here that is very intriguing. And that is, he says now he's going to go travel across the country, and he's going to be listening to people. He says the majority of Americans are just plain worn out. I know our country isn't as divided as Washington wants us to be. We share common values of family, freedom, democracy, dignity, and the belief that together we can overcome any challenge. We need to take back these values. So he's going to travel the country. He's going to see if there is interest in a third-party independent run, a void that he might fill.
Yeah.
That's the other part of this story, that he's going to be out there looking around to see if there is any interest in that in 2024, and if there is he a person that might fill that void?
Yeah.
That's the other part of this story.
We're almost 1 year away from the presidential election. Hoppy, I'll get you out of here on this. I mean, Manchin did a pretty good job keeping this buttoned up, right? I mean, did anybody see this announcement coming today, virtually 1 year to the date before the election?
You know, I have I stay in close contact with these people, Dave, and in fact, I was talking to somebody this morning, and they said something will be coming very soon. But you know what? I've heard that before, and candidly, Manchin I know this. I know he had a lot of difficulty trying to figure out what to do, what he wanted to do, and so I would talk to one source, and they'd say, "Well, he's leaning this way," and then I'd talk to another source. They'd say, "Well, he's leaning this way," and my pat answer was, I don't know what Manchin's going to do because he doesn't know what he's going to do. And I think he really struggled with his decision, and he finally and I think he was getting some people to tell him, say, look, you got to make a call here. You got to make a call. So whatever that was that got him to a point, he finally just said, okay, I'm going to make that call. And he did today. So that changes the state dynamic significantly, and also it changes this national dynamic a little bit as he goes out and sees if there's any interest in a legitimate third-party run and whether he might be that person, like with this Unity ticket that the No Labels organization is talking about.
Hoppy, thanks for the breaking news and the analysis. Thus endeth the political portion of our show. I will talk to you on game day on Saturday for Mountaineer football at Oklahoma.
I appreciate you breaking format, Dave, for the breaking news. Good job.
This is Hotline Weekend.
To the very, very, very serious business of beer. And for that, we bring Pat Strader into the conversation. Pat, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dave. Happy Beer Friday.
Happy Beer Friday to you as well. Hey, man, last week when I talked to you, you were confirming that you went to the WVU game last Saturday. What do you think?
Man, we put it on them.
Yeah, sure did.
It was fun to watch.
It was. All right, let's get into the beer stuff. And as I said, if you want to shoot us a text for Pat right now, go ahead and do it. But don't wait too long. 304-8255-304, 304-TALK 304. Let's talk about Mountain State Chestnut Ale first.
Yeah, Mountain State, one of the oldest breweries in the state. They've been around for a very long time. And, we often talk about, like, some of the breweries that just really stick to their standards, and I respect that tremendously. Mountain State's one of those. I mean, they have, their kind of set of flagship beers, if you will. But this is interesting. I don't know that I have seen this before. If they've brewed it before, I have totally missed it. But they have released John Brown Chestnut Ale. This is a perfect fall beer, by the way. I mean, like, it's a malty, very brown ales are just something that you don't see that often. But they've got these in cans. Watch for them on shelves in all the usual places across the state. And I'm really excited to see him release a new beer.
All right, so Mountain State Brewing, that's right there in Thomas. It's on 1 Nelson Boulevard. And I'm looking at this can, and it's got a very stern portrait of John Brown on the can. Kind of scary, actually.
Yeah. I'm anxious to try this one. So keep an eye out for that on shelves soon.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Bad Shepherd. We got some beer from Bad Shepherd to talk about today.
Bad Shepherd's got a lot going on, and this is a highly anticipated release, their seasonal release, the Stroopwafel. And it's really an interesting flavor profile for a beer. Perfect for the holidays. And man, I tell you what, people absolutely love this beer. So the Stroopwafel is back on tap there at Bad Shepherd. And then they've also got 2 other beers that they're going to be releasing. Appalachia, I'm not sure if I'm saying that one correctly or not. And then another one called Glad-Handed a Nectarine, which is an IPA. So the Appalachia is a Belgian chocolate ale with orange peel and maple. So a really interesting flavor combination there. Bad Shepherd's cranking out 3 new beers.
Pat, put this in your notes because we're going to have to start talking about this. I mean, it's November 10th. You know where I'm going?
Christmas gifts.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to have to do a segment where we're going to have to talk about craft beer in West Virginia and Christmas gifts. So, put that in your notes because, man, it's going to be here before you know it.
All right. I'll prep some things for the next one.
Thank you, because people are going to be asking me about you. And so, all right. It's hockey season back in the Mountain State. Let's talk about the Wheeling Nailers.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. And I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that they have done this before. But Big Timber has brewed a beer, and they call it the Nail Ale for the Wheeling Nailers. Now, this is, we talk about collaborations and things all the time. Big Timber's really got their game dialed in. They've done the Country Roads Trust Lager. Now they're doing this with the Nailers, and just really cool. I love seeing the crossover between sports and craft beer, and it's a really smart play.
This reminds me that I need to do more stuff with the Nailers. I love minor league hockey. I went to tons of Huntington Blizzard games. If I lived in Wheeling, I'd be watching the Nailers all the time. I love hockey, and I love this can. This is a really sharp looking can.
It is. It's very well done, and I'm not certain if it's available only there at West Banco or if it's available outside of there or not. I'll try and track that information down, but just a really cool collaboration here.
Coop, remember when Jake Flatley worked here, man, he was all about the Nailers. All about the Nailers. All right, Abolitionist. We've got Dirty Thin Mints. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so, I can't remember if it was last week or not. It's been in the last 2 weeks. We talked about Abolitionist is going to be rolling out each week in November a new variation of their Dirty Beard Imperial Stout. And so this week I saw that they had released Dirty Thin Mints. This is really cool. But it's their, base Imperial Stout. And then they added fresh mint and some chocolate to this thing. So very interesting flavor profile there. This is a sipper, clocks in at 10%. So it's one that you definitely just want a little small pour of that. But, if you happen to see it, and they do have this in cans, by the way. So if you see it out, give it a try. This looks really interesting to me. But, yeah, Abolitionist Dirty Thin Mints is out.
Sounds good. All right, this segment's winding down. Pat, got a listener question from Tim, 304-203. Hey, Dave, ask Pat what's his favorite celebration beer?
Celebration beer?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good one.
All right, say, for example, you're watching the Oklahoma game tomorrow night, and Garrett Green runs for like a 50-yard touchdown as time expires. What's your go-to in your beer fridge?
Oh, man, that's a great question. You know what? I'm going to kind of make this a little punny here. The Sierra Nevada's Celebration Ale is coming out very soon. That's their seasonal wet hop. So I'm going to have to maybe go see if I can find one of those for Garrett's big run tomorrow night.
There you go. By the way, I got this note, 304-575. Dave, this is my favorite time of the week. Happy Beer Friday. That's from Sonny and Debbie at Ocean Isle Beach. Hey, thanks for sending that note along. I'm really glad that you're enjoying this segment. We have a lot of fun with it. All right,
Yes.
Pat, great local stuff as always. What's in your hand or what will be there soon?
Well, I'm nothing at the moment. I had to run to my office, so I'm actually in Charleston right now.
Really?
I may walk over to Bad Shepherd and give a couple of those a try and toast all of our veterans out there on this Veterans Day.
I tell you what, that sounds like a really solid plan. Pat, thanks as always for coming on the show. Great beer information. We do this every Friday at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour at 4:33. Kind of gets us primed for the weekend.
This is
have a good
Hotline
week, and I'll talk to you
Weekend.
next week.
Welcome to Hotline Weekend, your ultimate weekend getaway for nonstop excitement and entertainment.
Let's get started. Cooper, you ready?
Yeah, man, ready to go.
Pick one, topic number one. Man, I was reading this great article last night at Ultimate Classic Rock about classic rock mistakes. Mistakes made in classic rock. And I'm not going to go into the ones that are noted the most. Jerry Lee Lewis marrying his cousin, John Lennon saying things he shouldn't have said. But I had a couple of them that I thought were pretty interesting, and I want you to pick one. Remember the time U2 gave away an album in your Apple device that you didn't ask for?
Oh, yeah.
Remember
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they did that?
Yep.
Remember when they did that? Do you remember when Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees thought it was a good idea to star in a movie, Sgt. Pepper's? Remember that?
Remember that too, yes.
That was 1979. All right. Bigger mistake. U2 puts a free bad album in your Apple device or the Sgt. Pepper movie. Bigger mistake. U2 putting an album in your Apple device that you didn't ask for or the Sgt. Pepper movie. Please pick one.
And I feel two different ways about this. The bigger mistake, I think, from an objectively quality standpoint was the Sgt. Pepper's movie. It was terrible. And, I mean, you only watch it for laughs these days, and it was absolutely horrible. Meanwhile, Sgt. Pepper Lives On is one of the most classic albums to ever come
True.
out. On the flip side of things, was it the Elevation album? Whatever the name of that album that U2 came up with. The problem with that thing was people were in a mood, and that was during a time in the zeitgeist of our culture where people were just ready to hate anything that was mainstream. It was like, and U2 was kind of the face of mainstream rock, maybe them and Coldplay back in at that time. And everybody just wanted to hate on that. People had never even heard of U2.
Right.
They didn't care. I mean, ultimately, what was it? It was a free album on your iPod or whatever, right? Big deal. Doesn't seem like all that big of a deal, but people were just ready to hate it. Whatever the faux pas was from a marketing standpoint, it hastened the decline of U2 as a relevant band on like Top 40 and everything else. It did. I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it did. So from that standpoint, I think it decreased U2 staying power more so than it did the Bee Gees, who were already kind of on the way out, and everybody that was involved with that project. So I think maybe it was the U2 deal.
I think you're right. And it wasn't like they gave you like the Joshua Tree, right? If it had been a really good album, we could be having a different conversation.
It could have been, but I think people were just ready to hate. They were just ready to hate.
All right, pick one, topic number two. So I saw this story today at the Hollywood Reporter. Sharon Stone is alleging that a former head of Sony exposed himself to her in the 1980s. So she told Kelly Ripa this on a podcast. So I started thinking, you know what? I don't think we've ever done one on 80s sex symbols.
Oh.
80s sex symbols.
Okay.
Pick one. Kathleen, and we're talking about the 80s alone, okay? Kathleen Turner or Kim Basinger. Better sex symbol of the 80s. Please pick one.
I mean, I know the default would be like, oh, Vicky Vale, Kim Basinger, Batman, and stuff like that. But man, Kathleen Turner was in those movies with Michael Douglas. What was it?
Body Heat.
Well, not only that, but wasn't she in Romancing the Stone?
Oh, yeah.
And Jewel the Now? I love those movies so much. So much. Didn't she have her legs insured or so? Was there some rumor about that or something? I don't know. But anyway, I'm a long-time adorer of Kathleen Turner, so I have to go with Kathleen Turner.
Yeah, she was
there.
with William Hurt in that Body Heat movie.
Yeah,
That's who she was
right.
with.
Yeah, very good movie. All of those are good.
Have you heard about this Geddy Lee baseball memorabilia auction?
No.
So Geddy Lee of Rush has got an amazing baseball collection, and he's going to be auctioning it off. Christie's is going to do it in early December. Man, he has got some unbelievable stuff. Let's see. He's got the final out ball from both of Johnny Vandermeer's no-hitters.
Oh, wow.
Okay. He's got a ball that's signed by 26 of the 33 members of the 3,000 hit club.
Wow.
From Ty Cobb to Miguel Cabrera. And he's also got some balls that are signed by like Neil Armstrong, balls that are signed by JFK, Harry Truman. He's got some he's got
some balls.
He's got yes, he does. Yes, he does. He's got a ball that's signed by all 4 members of the Beatles from their Shea Stadium show in '65 that they think is going to be worth about $300,000.
A baseball from a baseball stadium concert.
Yes.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, good stuff, right?
Wow.
So Geddy Lee's a huge fan. He's a huge Blue Jays fan. So the topic here is pick one. Baseball memorabilia or the memorabilia of any other sport? Baseball memorabilia or the memorabilia of any other sport?
This is kind of a no-brainer for me. I'm a bigger baseball fan than anything else. As far as American sports go, it's the oldest sport that's played here. It's the longest collectible sport. I think it probably has the most mature market when it comes to collectibles. I think it's got to be baseball. I'll take baseball against the field.
Okay, all right. Let's have a pro football question.
Okay.
So you probably heard that the New York Giants need a quarterback.
Yeah, they need a lot of things, but including a quarterback.
Daniel Jones is out for the year. So Tommy DeVito is going to start at quarterback for the Giants.
Any relation?
This week against the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, he's a great story. I mean, he grew up almost close enough to the Giants stadium that he could see it. His mom said, hey, it's just like he's playing in the backyard. So more interest this weekend. Tommy DeVito or Danny DeVito? More interest this weekend in Tommy DeVito, the new starting quarterback of the Giants, or Danny DeVito? Please pick one.
Man, I think that I have to make can I make a Jewel the Now reference here as well?
Sure you can.
I think that Danny DeVito was in one of those movies anyway. Where the going gets tough, the tough get going, remember? He was in that video and everything. I'm a huge Danny DeVito fan. I'm sorry. I love him on Always Sunny. I've heard him on a zillion podcasts. He's a good dude. He's funny. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He's a good representative of Hollywood when there's not very many of them out there. I'm sorry, Tommy, but I got to go with Danny.
Hey, doesn't the name Tommy DeVito sound like every hairband drummer ever?
Yeah, or that he would have been in My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah, and wasn't he in L.A. Guns or something? I don't even know. Right. Okay, so I saw this list today. This was at the Takeout about the items, the last-minute grocery items for Thanksgiving that you're most likely to miss.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the list, 10 in inverse order, is condensed milk, canned pineapple, apple pie, vanilla extract, frozen pies, evaporated milk, pie crust, elbow pasta, pumpkin pie, and whipped cream. Those are the things something on that list you will forget.
Sure.
So, Coop, of that list, more likely to forget while prepping for Thanksgiving, pie crust or canned pineapple? Pie crust or canned pineapple? More likely to forget when you're preparing for Thanksgiving.
I'll say canned pineapple, I guess, because Shannon will not forget pie crust. That's just not going to happen. That's a staple. That's something she's going to either remember to get or she makes them. Canned pineapple is honestly something we usually have in the pantry anyway, because my kid loves pineapple.
Okay.
But I think that if we were shopping and had to get it, I think we would be most likely to forget the pineapple.
You know what? I think that's right. It's because the little things on this list, those are the things you're going to miss. You're going to miss like the evaporated milk, the vanilla extract,
for sure, or
the canned pineapple. I think you're not going to miss the big ticket.
Yeah, I think that's true.
All right, what do you got for me?
Oh, already ready. Okay, here we go. Let's see. I was recently perusing a practical gift guide for the holidays from BuzzFeed, and 2 items caught my attention for not actually being very practical. So one of them was a 4-inch mini waffle maker for $20, and the other was a heated blade razor starting at $150. Cost doesn't really matter, but pick which of those quote-unquote practical gifts are actually the most useless. A heated blade razor, from what I could tell, it just heats up and it's like a 3-blade razor, whatever. And a 4-inch waffle maker. What?
A 4-inch waffle maker?
What's the point?
What? Well, first of all, the heated razor thing is like 4 times more.
Yeah,
right?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, so how'd you put this? Which is more useless?
Yeah, which of those are more useless?
Man, it's got to be the heated razor.
I don't get it.
I don't get that either.
It was like just like a wet towel on your face. No, it's not. It's a hot razor.
No, it's a hot razor. No.
Okay. All right. Now we get to play 6 Degrees of Separation this week, and we're going to use Dennis Miller. Dennis Miller, guest on the program.
Yep.
For those of you that don't listen every week, that's true. For those of you that don't listen every week, we play the old game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon with guests that have been on our program. So we're going to do it with Dennis Miller, who was a guest on our program a few years ago. So Dennis Miller appeared in Disclosure in 1994 with Michael Douglas in Fatal Attraction in 87 with Glenn Close. Glenn Close was in Mars Attacks in 1996 with Jack Nicholson. And, of course, the one connection we always have on here, A Few Good Men, 1992, Jack Nicholson and Kevin Bacon. So taking all other movies other than A Few Good Men, pick one. Disclosure, Fatal Attraction, or Mars Attacks?
Oh, it's got to be Fatal Attraction.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Fatal Attraction. You know what? You mentioned Dennis Miller in the movie he was in. He was in Disclosure.
Yeah.
He was in The Web.
Oh, he was in The Web. He was in he was in one of those Tales of the Crypt movies.
Yeah.
He was in a bunch of those.
Yeah.
He was in a bunch of those movies.
Yeah, I'll go with Fatal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction.
Hey,
very good.
Who figured that Sharon Stone would be so impactful in this segment?
Yeah, that's true. And the one thing about Disclosure.
No, I'm wrong.
It was Kim Basinger was the first one.
Glenn
Close.
Glenn Close,
Glenn
not
Close.
Sharon Stone.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Question number 3. I was don't ask why, but I was playing White Rabbit for Essie the other night from Jefferson Starship, and it dawned on me, not for the first time, but I started thinking about songs without choruses, because White Rabbit doesn't have a chorus. And so I was doing a little bit of research, and so I want you to pick. I picked 4 songs, not just 2.
Okay.
So pick which of these songs you like best that are songs without a traditional chorus. White Rabbit from Jefferson Airplane, Hurricane from Dylan, Sound of Silence from Simon & Garfunkel, and A Day in the Life from the Beatles.
To be honest, Hurricane, I'm a Dylan fan, and we just played an excerpt of that on the show.
Sure.
But I think it's got to be A Day in the Life.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the answer.
It's the most interesting song of those, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like all those songs.
Yeah.
All right, question number 4. There's been some talk, even involving Christopher Nolan, of a James Bond reboot that includes reimagining early cinematic Bond plots to be closer to that of the creator Ian Fleming's novels.
Okay.
That means we might see elements from The Man with a Golden Gun or Thunderball or For Your Eyes Only resurface in the future. With that in mind, pick who the worst Bond villain is between Carl Stromberg, who was in The Spy Who Loved Me, his motive for destroying the world to create an underwater society.
Yeah.
And then there was Elliot Carver in Tomorrow Never Dies, a media mogul seeking to start a war just for the ratings. The worst Bond villain.
What were the movies again?
It was Tomorrow Never Dies. That was Elliot Carver.
Yeah.
And the other one was For Your Eyes Only.
It's Tomorrow Never Dies.
Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was a pretty bad one.
Those Bond villains were terrible.
Yeah, they were both pretty bad. That's why I was going for. Okay, final question is pick a better sweet and savory option. Hey, here's another mention of pineapple.
Okay.
Ham and pineapple or maple and bacon.
I think I'm going to go for maple and bacon because you said the magic word.
Bacon. I could live with either of those, but I think that's the right answer.
Yeah, I tell you what, I had some really nice ham last weekend. It was really good. We're getting into that part of the season too.
I do love
ham.
I
think it's maple and bacon.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Gotcha.
And of course we're late.
Way late.
All right, there you go. Pick one. We do it every Wednesday at 4:33.
Metro News Hotline, weekdays from 3 until 6. Syndicated over the air and online at WVMetronews.com.